It's the middle of the night. A small team moves quietly through the darkness toward a building. Every step matters. Inside could be armed enemies. The situation could change in seconds. Heart rates are high. Adrenaline is rising. Every instinct in the human body says the same thing: move faster. But the team leader does something unexpected. He stops for a moment and takes a slow breath. Not because he's relaxed. Far from it. But because in the most stressful situations imaginable, elite soldiers are trained to do something most people never learn. They slow themselves down. For the men of the United States Navy SEALs, staying calm under pressure isn't about being fearless. It's about learning how to control the mind when everything around you becomes chaotic. And over decades of training and real-world missions, they've developed a small set of techniques that allow them to function in environments where most people would freeze. The surprising part is that these techniques aren't complicated, but they are practiced relentlessly. The real purpose of SEAL training. To understand how Navy SEALs handle stress, it helps to look at how they are trained. The selection process is famously brutal. Candidates endure freezing ocean swims before sunrise, endless physical exercises, days with little sleep, constant pressure from instructors. One of the most well-known phases is called BUD-S training. It's designed to push people far beyond their comfort zone. From the outside, it looks like pure physical punishment. But the real purpose isn't just to build stronger bodies. It's to train the mind. Because when people face extreme pressure, their reactions change. Thoughts become scattered, vision narrows, decisions become slower. In higher-risk situations, that can be dangerous. So the goal of SEAL training is simple. Expose people to stress so often that their brain eventually stops interpreting it as panic. Instead, stress becomes a signal that it's time to focus. And that process begins with something surprisingly basic. Control the body first. When a stressful moment hits, the body reacts almost instantly. Breathing becomes shallow. The heart speeds up. Muscles tighten. It's the body's natural alarm system. But SEALs are taught that before they try to control the situation around them, they need to control something else. Their own breathing. Many operators use a technique often called box breathing. The rhythm is simple. A slow inhale, a brief pause, a slow exhale, another pause, then repeat. Within a few cycles, something interesting happens. The heart rate begins to drop. The body relaxes slightly. The mind clears. It doesn't remove the danger, but it restores control. Imagine standing outside a door during a mission. The next moment could change everything. Your pulse is racing. Instead of rushing forward in that state, you pause. One breath, then another. The environment hasn't changed, but your ability to think clearly has. That small moment of control can make the difference between reacting emotionally and acting deliberately. And yet, breathing alone doesn't explain something unusual about elite operators. After years of training, chaos itself begins to feel strangely familiar. Training inside stress. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid stressful situations. The logic makes sense. Stress feels uncomfortable, so we instinctively move away from it. SEAL training follows the opposite philosophy. Instead of avoiding stress, candidates are placed directly inside it. They run difficult drills while exhausted. They operate in loud, confusing environments. They're given complex tasks under strict time pressure. Sometimes instructions change halfway through an exercise. Sometimes the situation becomes intentionally chaotic. At first, this overwhelms people. But something interesting begins to happen over time. The brain adapts. What once felt like panic slowly starts to feel manageable. The noise, the pressure, the uncertainty. They stop feeling like warning signs and start feeling like normal conditions. For most people, stress sends a message that something is wrong. For SEALs, stress becomes a message that something important is happening. And when that switch happens, attention sharpens. But even with that training, there's still one problem stress creates. When pressure becomes high enough, the brain tries to process too many things at once. And that's when people start to feel overwhelmed. So SEALs rely on another mental trick, one that simplifies everything: shrinking the mission. In high-pressure environments, Thinking about the entire situation can quickly become overwhelming. Imagine trying to process every possible risk at the same time, where threats might be, what could go wrong, what decisions need to be made next. The mind can get stuck in a loop of possibilities. SEAL training teaches a different approach. Instead of focusing on the entire mission, they narrow their attention to the next small action, just the next step. Imagine entering a building during an operation, thinking about the entire structure, every possible threat, every unknown variable would overload anyone. So the focus becomes simple. Open the door, check the corner, move forward. One action at a time, then the next again. Breaking a large situation into small pieces prevents the brain from becoming flooded with information. It creates a sense of forward movement, and psychologically, that movement matters. Because when people feel overwhelmed, they often freeze. But when attention is focused on a single clear step, action becomes easier. And still, one of the most powerful techniques SEALs use happens long before any mission begins. In fact, it happens entirely inside their minds. Mental rehearsal. Before complex operations, SEAL teams spend time visualizing what might happen. They mentally walk through the mission step by step. They imagine the environment, the layout of buildings, the timing of movements, the unexpected problems that might appear. Sometimes they repeat these mental run-throughs many times. From the outside, it might look like quiet preparation, but inside the brain, something important is happening. The mind begins to build familiarity. When humans encounter completely unexpected situations, the brain can hesitate. It searches for patterns in previous experiences to guide decisions. Mental rehearsal creates those patterns in advance. By imagining possible scenarios repeatedly, the brain starts treating them like something it has already experienced. So when the real moment arrives, the situation feels less shocking. It feels recognizable. That sense of familiarity can make decision-making faster and calmer. Athletes use this technique before competitions. Surgeons use it before complex procedures. For elite military units, it's another layer of preparation that helps them stay steady when the stakes are highest. And when you step back and look at all of these techniques together, a pattern begins to appear. Why these techniques work together? None of these methods eliminate stress. They were never designed to. Instead, they reshape how stress is experienced. Controlled breathing stabilizes the body when pressure spikes. Training under harsh conditions makes stressful environments feel normal rather than threatening. Focusing on the next small action prevents the mind from becoming overloaded. Mental rehearsal prepares the brain for situations before they ever happen. Each technique targets a different part of the stress response. Together, they create a system that allows people to stay functional even when the environment becomes unpredictable. Stress stops being an obstacle. It becomes information, a signal that attention should increase rather than collapse. And that shift is what separates panic from control. The real lesson. Think again about that moment outside the building. A small team waiting in the dark, the tension in the air, the uncertainty of what comes next. In that moment, the difference between chaos and clarity often comes down to something surprisingly small. A slow breath, a narrow focus, a mind that has practiced responding to pressure instead of fearing it. The truth is that elite performers rarely eliminate stress from their lives. They simply train their minds to work with it. And while most people will never face the situations that Navy SEALs do, the mental tools they use were built on principles that apply far beyond extreme environments. Because pressure is a part of life. The real skill is learning how to remain steady when it appears,